Okay, welcome everybody. In this video we're going to show you how to apply a pattern in an assembly, and I'm going to show you how to get the engine moving. Because we've created the engine via two sub-assemblies, which is also shown in the PDF paper with the exploded view, which shows you how to assemble the parts. And we have a static and a dynamic sub-assembly. Now, you will see that when you try to attach two parts together and try to move the engine around, that it won't actually rotate. So we're going to show you how to fix that as well. Okay, first things first, let's add the washer and the bolt. And then let's pattern them, because we don't want to do the same mate over and over again. We can just do it once and then pattern the parts. So let's add the washer to the front face of the dynamic part of the bearing. And let's add the bolt as well. Okay, now, do you think we're done mating the washer and the bolt to the housing? Well, we're not at this point, because as you can see we still have minus signs and these shouldn't be movable parts. If we torque down a bolt to spec, then it should be fixed. So if we move the part, you can see we can still rotate it. Now in this case the rotation isn't really an issue, but it is an issue for the performance when using assemblies in SolidWorks. If you try to rotate the components and there are a lot of moving parts which can't freely move, then this impacts the performance of SolidWorks. So the larger your model is, the more moving components you have, the more faces your model has, the larger the impact is on its performance. So this part shouldn't have to move, so let's fix it to make sure that it remains fixed, and this will help with the performance of our model. Now, the way to do that is first let's mate the planes of the washer and the bolt together so they move as one. And once we've done that, let's just mate the plane from the washer to the plane on the right plane of the main assembly. And we only have to make this parallel. We don't have to make this coincident, because we only need to prevent the rotation. So if we pick parallel, the angles remain the same and the part cannot rotate. And then the minus signs are removed, as you can clearly see. Now the part cannot rotate anymore. Okay, then we're going to add a pattern. So we have a linear pattern and a circular pattern. So we're going to select the circular pattern option. Here we need to select an axis. Now, like I've explained before, every circular part has an axis. So if we go to view and select temporary axis, you can see that every circular part has a temporary axis. So let's remove this again. Now, all we have to do is select an outer cylindrical edge, and it automatically selects the center axis, which moves through that circular edge. We can select the components to pattern, select the washer and the bolt, and then we can select 360 degrees equal spacing, and we will have 4 of them. And as you can see here in the preview, we will get 4 bolts. Now, if you look in your feature tree, you see you still have 4 parts here, but we also have the circular pattern here, which will have the other remaining 3 washers and bolts in it. And as you can see, there are no minus signs here, so that's good as well. Okay, let's add a section view now, because we would like to rotate the engine. So we're going to go to move, and I want to rotate the engine, but that's not possible. So why is this not possible? Well, we work with two sub-assemblies, a static and a dynamic sub-assembly. And if you import an assembly into another assembly, they will both remain rigid, meaning they are not movable. In this case, it's not preferred, but by default, it is preferred that assemblies usually don't move. So what are we going to do? We're going to make the second dynamic assembly. We're going to make this flexible. The first assembly is a static part. The part doesn't move, so this can remain rigid. So we're going to right click on the dynamic part, because we do need to change this, and we're going to go to properties, which is this icon here. I'm going to click on this. Now we have several options. We're going to go to this option here. It says solve as rigid or flexible. If we select flexible, then all the movements of the subassembly are allowed. So I'm going to click on OK. Once we've done that, you can see the icon on top here changed as well from the static rigid icon to the flexible icon. And then if we go to move, we are able to move the assembly. So by default, if you enter an assembly into another assembly, it will become rigid, and you have to change this option for it to become flexible again. So once you've done this, you've completed the assembly of the engine.